I am primarily a comedian and TV writer and actor. And I also host a podcast. But also, I guess if we want to do backgrounds, I'm a multi-generational, half Japanese and half Chinese American.
Awesome, thank you. Bella.
Hi guys, I'm Bella. I'll keep it short. I'm a DJ. I'm from Cali. I've been doing this for close to a decade. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to do this, Kara.
Yeah, my pleasure. NoNo, one of my favorite humans on the whole planet.
Ah, thanks. High praise. Hi, everybody. I'm NoNo Go. I am Taiwanese American, born in San Francisco, but grew up in the, I don't know, Hodunk, Arizona. And now in Boston, I am a freelance footwear designer. That's how I know Kara. And I'm super happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And then to round out our panel, we're very honored to have Kalika here. So please introduce yourself and tell everyone how all the things you have going on, because you have so much happening. You did an amazing reel yesterday of like what it means when you say you're entrepreneur, which I thought was fantastic.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kalika Yap. I am an immigrant. I was born in Quezon City, Manila, Philippines, and I'm a serial concurrent entrepreneur, so I'm running 5 businesses all at the same time. I'm an author. I wrote the book, the Little Brown Book, published by HarperCollins. I'm the host of the entrepreneurs organization Wonder podcast. I have 2 kids that are also entrepreneurs. I'm married. My husband works for the companies, and I'm a former journalist.
So as you guys can see, we have just a few of the badass women that are here with us today. Really diverse assortments we're happy about, with really great different experiences. Just to speak to why this matters so much, 2 things came up really recently. Obviously, I'm based in Orange County, California, and the statistic is that hate crimes against Asian Americans just in Orange County is up tenfold in the past year, which is absolutely insane. And then I don't know if you guys saw as well, the US karate Olympian yesterday posted a video where she was working out in her local park in Orange County, and a guy attacked her, went on a rant for about 20 minutes. And she said, listen, it's okay that it was me because I have the training to protect myself and know how to handle these situations. But what if it was anybody else? What if it was my mother or my kids or someone else that wouldn't have the training that I have? So bravo to her for keeping poise to that situation, but that shouldn't be a situation that anyone is dealing with. So I would love to hear from all of you panelists. Have you had personal experiences, and what have they been? And I know, NoNo, you shared a lot through your illustrations on your Instagram, which I think is a great way to be sharing your experiences. So maybe we'll start with you. And we'll just go around the group. So it's open forum. So panelists, you can kind of go with the flow.
I think my experience, I'm just now starting to process them. As I kind of drew in my Instagram, every incident is like a little splinter that happens, and I'm this block. And over the years, I just kind of sand them down. I don't try to make a big deal out of them. I don't try to dwell. I just kind of have normalized it in my experience. And lately, with all the Asian hate crimes happening, they've just resurfaced, and I find myself having to deal with them all at once, like all the childhood stuff. And most recently, it was just having to kind of getting brushed aside in a UPS line and having to just stand there for half an hour while other people were getting helped. And I try to justify it in my mind why I was the only one standing in line. Is it because my thing is more complicated? But then I saw a white guy in back of me get helped for the very same thing, and I try to justify too. And so it was really infuriating, and I found it super humiliating. And now being a mother of 2, like if I'm experiencing this by myself, it's fine. But if my kids were there witnessing that interaction, I feel like I need to have some words or I need to have something in my arsenal to just throw out and be like, is this normal? Hello? And so I think right now I'm still in the middle of just processing all of my past experiences that have been kind of like this. And it's been really great to have the like online social media and have people kind of affirm these experiences, even in them liking them and in them saying, hey, I had something similar happen to me. That just has been really affirming to me.
Thanks, NoNo. Sierra, I see you nodding your head throughout that share, so I'll let you go next.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I definitely thanks for sharing, No. I think it's like been so helpful to kind of, especially now that we've been so isolated for so long, to see everybody, whether that's posts on social media. I thankfully, like, I don't have any personal experiences to share in this time frame, but I remember talking with my another comedian friend, March of last year, March 2020, when we were talking about these hate crimes and incidents that were happening, and we're like, oh gosh, I guess it was still newish, as far as just within the pandemic timeline, and just to think that we were talking about it, again a year later. Of course, if we look at anybody's history, it's definitely something that has been around for a long time. But I think it's just been harrowing to see that, like, it's happening to us again, and the fact that um, no matter who I talk to who has left their house, I've also just been inside a lot. There's always something, and I live in Los Angeles, and even friends that are in, very heavily um, Asian American areas, I think, you'd expect people to be used to us by now, but maybe, apparently not. So it has been both, I guess, good to bring community together as just like the one positive thing to say, but it's definitely, been very difficult. Thankful to have family and a support system of friends. But yeah, I mean, I guess, I wonder if anybody else has personal stories to share, since I'm not a great example of that at the moment in my isolation.
Bella or Kalika, yeah.
Or not if it's, yeah, no revisiting if you don't need to.
With my experience, very, very similar to what NoNo talked about. I think I'm just now kind of processing it as a, we've collectively experienced these things together. I grew up in Manila, also like you, Kalika. So I came out here, spoke funny, but I feel like just growing up, it has been normalized, and I kind of, you're used to just being quiet about it and not really bringing too much attention to it, because you want to fit in, you want to just be neutral, you don't want anyone to like think you're fucking crazy for even speaking up about anything. So like growing up, yeah, you kind of learn to normalize that and suppress everything, all your thoughts and feelings about it. And like the school that I went to, it was maybe 3 Asians in the entire school. So it's not like if I spoke up about anything, anyone could relate to how I felt or any of that. So yeah, like what NoNo said, I feel like I'm just now processing that these are things that we collectively experienced growing up. It's just that we've had to suppress it, or not had a chance to talk about it, or not even know how to talk about it. Because growing up, I didn't know how to talk about it. I knew how I felt about it. I just didn't know how to express those feelings, because like I said, I wasn't sure if the person next to me could relate, or the person next to me could understand what I'm feeling. So yeah, it's taken a while to process it, but now I think that there's, and I think the power of social media is so important in times like this, because people are talking about it now, and now it's like, oh, you went through that too. And I'm having more of these conversations lately, which is crazy, because I have Asian friends, but we've never even like talked about it the way that we're talking about it now. And I think that's, that's so crazy to me, because like we've known each other for decades and we're just now talking about it. The fact that we've all experienced these things together, so I think that the power of social media is also very important, because now we get to talk about it openly. And yeah, even something like this. I'm happy we're having this, because otherwise I feel like this is just something that, like these conversations would just happen like behind closed doors, but now we have a platform where we could talk about it with other people and have an open line of communication. So
Well, I can add, I grew up in Hawaii. So after I left the Philippines because of martial law, we moved to Hawaii. And I guess growing up where the majority of people are Asian, I think I had a different experience. But during that, while I was there, when between the ages of 6 and 9, I moved to Australia. And that's where we saw a lot of racism and discrimination. I remember just walking and, my mom was just saying hi to a neighbor, and the neighbor was just like, "Are you speaking English?" Just like really rude. And I was 6 at the time, and my mom didn't say anything, of course. My mom is really sweet, a mother of 5 kids. And, but I think that in order for us to, if we're going to be talking about how we can change, it's definitely an outrage, but I think that we need to be able to show up not on that level, but to show up kindly. So I was thinking about, speaking up, in a post office or a UPS store, what that would look like. I mean, I'm 4'11 3/4, but it would just be like, "Hi, I'm here," like using, body language, using nonverbal communication, but also being really friendly about it. Reading books on, body language, reading books on how to have a difficult conversation and not be angry about it. I'm a really big fan of Thich Nhat Hanh, the Zen Buddhist monk, and I've read all his books on, taming the tiger within, talking about anger, because what happens is when you start thinking about this anger, it just becomes this relentless snowball effect. So, and I absolutely 100% believe that everything here is a really good conversation to have, but there's also a great Professor Ross, I think from Smith College, who talks about rather than calling someone out, what about calling them in? Really trying to understand their point of view and starting from there, because it's easy to get angry. I think that is our default nature. And how do we intentionally show up in this world where it can be a lot more effective?
How afraid are you guys of your parents or grandparents or your kids being out just in, regular day activities that we're allowed to do right now? Because I just keep seeing every day there's another elderly Asian American being pushed or being attacked or I don't understand why anyone would do that to anyone, but like suddenly it's just like no big deal for it to be happening. And I'm shocked that there doesn't seem to be anybody there to support them. Like, how are you on the street by yourself, and who's filming it, and why aren't you helping? Like, what's going on? So how are you guys feeling about the people in your family and your communities, and are you letting them go out, and when they do, are you taking any precautions?
I think my I think there's a stark contrast between how my parents are when they're in their native Taiwan and how they are here in the States. And I think the mastery of language has a lot to do with it. My mom was asking me about the UPS incident, and I shared with her how I was timid in speaking up. And my mom was like, she's the type of person. I still remember this memory of being in Taiwan and being on the bus, and the bus had a leak, and so we used our umbrellas in the bus to kind of like shield us from the rain that was coming through the leak. And when it came time to collect the bus fare, my mom was like, heck no, we're not paying you for a leaky bus ride. I'm not paying. And then she spoke to the rest of the bus, like, you guys know you have rights. You don't have to pay. And I was mortified, like humiliated, wanted to duck into the seats, like, please, please don't make a big fuss about it. And that was in Taiwan. But here in the States, my mom said that she was trying to text the guy who did the roofer, and he was a Caucasian man, and she was paying him to fix our roof in our house in Arizona, and she took a day to come up with that text message took her a day. And she said, I just have this inferiority complex when it comes to dealing with Caucasian men, and I don't know what it is. And I find that I thought about how when I was in kindergarten, whenever I had to have my mom write a note to the teacher saying, please excuse her for being late or for her absence, my mom would say, can you write it for me first? And then I'll copy it in my own handwriting and I'll sign it. And I feel like that just in my child mind, that kind of cut my mom's legs out from under her. It was a very I just felt like my parents are powerless in their not being able to advocate on my behalf. Say, and it just felt like, oh, this is a really different dynamic. And I think I've carried that into, like, there's all sorts of baggage from growing up in an Asian home. Like I don't know if the rest of our panelists can relate, but my mom and dad would always ask, have you been, in Chinese it's called guai, and the literal translation of that is, have you been compliant? And that's like upheld as this the most wonderful thing you can be as a child is to be compliant. And now that I'm a professional, I'm like, I don't know if I want to put that on my resume. Like, I'm the most compliant employee you will ever have. Like, I'm not gonna rock the boat. So I'm curious to see if anybody else has a similar like baggage coming into their professional life.
I can agree 1,000%, but from like a even different perspective, I guess, since my parents, so I'm fourth generation, so I have the privilege of parents, speaking the language, grandparents speaking the language, but I guess the reason why I sometimes like to bring that angle is that even with so many generations, I think there's still things and cultural things that stick with us. And there's still race in America that, gives you a certain identity that other people place on you. And so then I think we still have that sort of compliance, despite the fact that, certainly there are other aspects of my parents being able to write the note or speak the language and do the things that, say, white parents did. But I would say that so thinking about like my own mom, like I think she was actually probably, imagine if, I guess, generations later, it's like she was definitely more, oh, come on, you got to stick up for yourself and you got to, you know be, help out your Asian brothers and sisters, like other, whatever it is. She had definitely some of that, having having seen her, say, her parents go through certain things, or and I think what was interesting though is still, as a kid, you still see actions of your parents. And I think there's definitely still elements that exist, even with the privileges that we have, where I still feel the sort of compliance thing. And I have a lot of conflict about that, because I think especially in every, just in, I guess, what it seems like American culture is like, be your individual self, and like, especially with if you're wanting to also fight back against like women stereotypes, you're also doing the same fighting of like, oh, I got to stand up for myself, I have to speak up, I shouldn't let anybody talk over me, all these things that we should do. So the minute that I ever fall into a more passive state, I do something that maybe was a little bit more soft spoken, I beat myself up about it, because I'm like, I'm falling into this stereotype, both Asian and woman. And it's just like an extra layer of guilt, I guess, or something, right, that I think we put on ourselves because of the conflicting messages of like compliance is good. And actually, like, as I get older, I've been trying to become more appreciative of that aspect of me, in the sense that, like, one of my cousins, actually, who's also fourth generation, she moved to Hong Kong recently because she got married and her husband works out there. So she's kind of come into this different thing of like moving, again, Hong Kong is its own thing, but I guess like the fact that she's kind of meeting more Asian people, and understanding that like there's actually, maybe if compliance is okay, there's a team player aspect to that. There's like a familial aspect to that. So I guess I've been trying to like accept that side of me as well, despite the fact that I would say that most of today's narrative here is, be an individual and speak up for yourself and all these things, which is, again, it's great. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting intersection to be at.
It's okay. I want to get this out the way. It's actually interesting, but it's good. It's been the opposite for me growing up. I feel like I've had to teach myself to be quiet and compliant my first few years living out here because, like I said, like it was always embarrassing for me to like speak up if I needed to. Like if anyone said any racial slurs towards me, I would just be like embarrassed to say anything or to speak up. But my parents and my grandma, they're different. Like my mom and my grandma are super tough. They will say something back if they felt like they were being, stereotyped or racially profiled or anything like that. Like my grandma would be the one, we'd be like at Ross, and if someone was like mocking her, which has actually happened, we were checking out at Ross, and somebody was like mocking her because she had an accent. She spoke English, but she has an accent. And somebody was mocking her. My grandma would totally be the one to be like, "Excuse me, did you say something? Say that to my face," type of grandma. You know what I mean? So growing up, my mom and my grandma were the ones that be like, "No, speak up, like fight back." But I'd be like, I don't know, because you guys aren't experiencing what I'm experiencing, where there's only like three other Asians in my school. Like if I spoke up, they'd make even more fun of me. You know what I mean? Like I just didn't feel like anyone would have my back if I spoke up. So growing up, I didn't want to be loud. I wanted to be quiet and neutral. And I guess it took a while for me to be comfortable with the fact that I can speak up, and I have the right to speak up, and I have a voice. So I obviously I like the direction of the way things are going now, because there's definitely a lot more people speaking up about these kinds of experiences. But yeah, like growing up or my first few years living here, I was compliant, I was quiet, and I preferred to be quiet because I felt like it was embarrassing if I spoke up, but like, and my grandma also, like, going back to what Kara asked, you asked if, or how I feel about, your grandparents going out in public, and if I feel like it's safe for them or whatever. Like I said, like my grandma is super tough. She lived out here alone by herself for more than a decade before the rest of the family moved out here. And so she's just used to doing things by herself and on her own, grocery shopping, work, all of that. So she still does that. And to this day, she's like, "No, I'm fine. I'm going to go get her groceries by myself. Don't worry about me." She's independent. It's just like, that's how she's, programmed. So we'll do little things like, "Oh, we already had it taken care of," but we won't tell her. Because my grandma, like I said, like she's just, if we even tell her like, "No, we'll do it for you," she'll be like, "No, what do you think of me, helpless type?" She's that type of grandma. So we'll just get it out of the way for her without even telling her, because that's just how how she is. But yeah, I feel like little things like that will just get it out of the way for her, because I am worried about her. We're worried about her. And it doesn't help that she's not scared. In a way, I kind of want her to just be a little more like, I guess, I don't know. My grandma's fearless, and knowing that kind of, it makes me nervous, because I want her to be a little more careful. But she's tough and she's fearless, so she's gonna be out there. She doesn't want to stay in the house, So little things like doing her groceries without her even asking, or without us telling her, we'll do little things like that. But other than that, my grandma's a tough cookie. Like she's like, "I'm not staying in the house. You're not gonna get me to stay my ass in the house."
Well, I think the biggest key to success is really knowing who you are. So in the Little Brown Book, I talk about the 12 core archetypes. And one of the archetypes is the rebel. There's another archetype that's the heroine. And then on the opposite spectrum, right, they're the people who are the idealists. I show up in the world as the maven, which is the teacher and also the leader. And so if you know what your innate qualities are, I think that you could definitely make a dent in the universe because you understand how you work. I didn't know that I leaned towards being a maven or a teacher, and even though I was doing it naturally, but after I took the test and I'm like, oh, okay. And so for me, like how I want to approach this problem is let's educate, and let's just show up, with excellence. Other people who are the rebels are just like, let's get down, let's beat them down, And other people who are heroines, they're advocates, they're probably the lawyers who are stepping up. And I think it's important to, hold, our politicians accountable, and I think that there are, and these archetypes are universal. So it doesn't matter what race you are. These are archetypes that you fall into, and I just think that you're a blend of both. But as far as my in-laws are in New Jersey, and I remember a couple of years ago when they were visiting us here in Santa Monica, my father-in-law was just like, I saw this guy and I said, what are you looking at? And I'm just like, this is Santa Monica. We're pretty diverse here. Like, what are you talking about? Like, sometimes I think because of his past, like he would see things that may have not been there. But now that I see that everything's happening, I asked my husband this morning, I'm just like, are they going to go grocery shopping? Because he's 86 and he likes to walk, but he had a brain aneurysm. Like, he used to be able to beat people, but not anymore, so I am worried about them. And my parents in Hawaii, they're very sick, stage 4 cancer, so they're homebodies. So my sister's taking care of them. They're not going out and getting groceries.
Well, and I know, NoNo, you shared an experience with your daughter of how you found out in a roundabout way how people were teasing her. And maybe you want to share that experience and, how you dealt with it and how you're working with your kids in processing all of this stuff.
Yeah, so I found my daughter in the bathroom. My daughter is 3.5. She was supposed to be brushing her teeth. And I found her laughing to herself. So I go in, I'm like, are you brushing your teeth? And she was doing this in the mirror and laughing at herself in the mirror. And I had this like, what do I do moment? Like, do I engage? I'm like, what are you doing? Do I react at all? Like, because she thinks it's funny. And so I asked, oh, did somebody do that to you? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, where? She's like, on the playground. I'm like, which playground? She's like, the school playground. And I'm like, you haven't been in school since the pandemic started. So are you like overhearing the news and this is just resurfacing? Or are you talking about the playground that we go to that's by a school? Like, I'm like freaking out and I'm like, okay, don't react. Be cool, be cool. Because if I react, she's going to think something's wrong. And so I tried not to draw attention to it. And it was kind of heartbreaking for me because I want that innocence to last longer. I don't want to have that talk with her about, oh, they were actually making fun of you and this is how you can respond. And I feel like there was one picture that I didn't draw at the end of that comic. It was about a year ago. We were in a bookstore and she was looking at picture books and she saw a book with on the cover of the book was the face of a Black girl, and she goes over there and she goes, monkey, monkey. And my husband and I wanted to like melt into the floor. We were so horrified that our little girl was doing this. And so I bring this up just to show that we can't always be the victims. We're the perpetrators, and we have a responsibility to educate our children that, as Daniel Tiger says, in some ways we are different, but in so many ways we are the same. He has a little jingle and we sing it all the time. In some ways we are different, and in so many ways we are the same. And so I just, recently we've been buying books that have more diverse people in them, and I love Sesame Street because there are all sorts of puppets and people that are all sorts of colors and people that have different disabilities, and it just it just shows her that there are people who don't look like us in the world, and this is to be embraced. So yeah, it's been a process. I'd love to hear how, Kalika, you have addressed this with your own children.
Yeah, so my children, so my daughter was bullied for 3 months. I didn't know that she was bullied, but I think it was for a different reason because she skipped first grade. So she went from kindergarten to second grade. And what happened there was I also try to give people the benefit of doubt, which she was the only Asian girl there. But I think it was the insecurity of the parents who, when they see someone that's smart, or whatever, like they were talking bad about Malia. And so the kids were also not treating her well. And so I didn't know that, but for 3 months she kept quiet because she just didn't want to, say anything. And then and the little sorry the little white girls were really sneaky. They were not hitting her with her hands, they were hitting them with her stomach, so like, and then she would fall. And then one day, she's like a high achiever, she didn't want to go to school. I'm just like, what happened, like. But my first instinct was not race. It was just, okay, I can see where she's changed the dynamic of the classroom. It was a very, very small classroom. And I didn't know how to really deal with it. And I went straight to the mom, and I think I was supposed to go straight to the dean, but I wasn't, when the little Tasmanian devil comes out, especially like a mama bear, like you want to defend. And, but I learned my lesson but my automatic reaction was not, oh, it's because she's Asian. It wasn't that. And so, I usually don't, assume that it's because of race. But I do like your comment about like how we do it to each other, because in Hawaii, like we had Kill Haole Day, like growing up in a public school, like, which Kaole means white, like we had those days. And then separately they would have like Kill Chinese Day. Like it was just part of like our culture to like harass other Asian races. So, and yeah, so we have a long way to go.
You all have very vast and broad career paths, all of you. Have you experienced anything in the workplace that, as you mentioned, I think so well earlier, Sierra, that you're both battling, whatever you're getting as an Asian American, but also as a woman. So have you always put any issues in the workplace into the same bucket, or have there been clear incidences where there has been a specific racist incident that you've experienced in your career journeys?
Or I can just think about a couple things. I mean, yeah, I think it can be a combination, and it's always hard. And like you said, Kalika, it's like I think we all want to try and give the benefit of the doubt to people, because if we admit it to ourselves that maybe it was a racist or sexist or combo thing, then it kind of opens up this whole, it opens up a dam of like feelings and our history and our personal stuff. So, but I would say, the only times, I mean, I think it definitely depends on like what type of job or what field. And like, almost always, of course, being a Asian American and then also being an Asian American woman, means I'm like maybe one of the only ones there, or there might be a few others, and that's very exciting, or there might be more women, or there might be more Asian Americans, namely, yeah, probably more women. I guess that makes sense. But I guess I've had the usual, like, a boss that I worked with for a long time calls me the name of like the other Asian woman who's like not even in the same realm. And so certain things where you feel a little bit like unappreciated. And then there's some, racism mixed up in there, but it's like not enough, and then it's typically I am typically lower in the totem pole, so I'm not going to raise an issue, right? But I think that's what I've kind of also learned from other friends. I guess just the fact that, like, so often I've been so grateful to have other like people of color and other women that I work with, because it's just so nice to have somebody be like, hey, that guy just did that thing. And then they go, oh yeah, it happened to me like 5 times already, So I think, and that's frustrating that that's our only outlet. Like I wish I could address the boss, but I think we know that there's like kind of a culture of fragility, right? Like getting called out about your own racism or your own sexism makes you feel initially very defensive and like, I mean, I'm not a bad person and all these things that have nothing to do with what just went down. So I think just to protect ourselves, oftentimes we do have to feel like, try to overlook it until we have the power maybe to speak up about it. And I think that dynamic is changing because hopefully people are more open to seeing that they have biases and stuff. But I definitely haven't yet gotten to that point necessarily. On the flip side, I feel like my current place of work has a lot of Asian Americans. I'm working on a animated show, so a lot of the animators, some of even the higher up producers, which is great. And so immediately when the tragedy happened in Atlanta, they held like a meeting, and I thought that was really nice, like coming directly from the top to be like, here's a forum to just like chat it out. And like obviously it wasn't organized or anything. We were just kind of meeting right away. And that was just kind of nice knowing that they were aware of what was going on, because I think especially if you are an employer and you have employees who are going through something, you know, in the world emotionally or personally or whatnot, just like allowing that space for them to be like, hey, I need an extension. I'm really not feeling great about this. And I don't think it should be on the employee to ask for that, So I think that was actually a positive reaction for sure.
From my experience, I've definitely been in situations where I feel like I was only getting booked for the Asian image. Most recent one that I can remember is I did the official Oscars after party for Parasite. I was gonna say last year because I don't count 2020. My sense of date is like all out of whack. But so that was 2 years ago. I did the Oscar party for Parasite, and I kept thinking, I was like, did I get booked for this because I'm Asian? You know what I mean? And there is an agency in specific that has booked me predominantly for Asian events. Like I did the Bruce Lee premiere, and it's just little things like that that make me wonder, like, was I only getting booked solely because of my Asian image? Am I only getting these opportunities because I'm Asian? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it limited me in a box where you can only book me because I'm Asian and you're booking me for Asian events. Like even the Bruce Lee one, I remember specifically in the dress code that they asked me to dress in, like Oriental style, or to play Oriental style music. And I'm like, what the hell is Oriental style music? And I'm like, do you think that people that are coming to this premiere party really want to hear Oriental style music? But that's just the stereotype. They think that because it's going to be predominantly Asians coming to this party, they're going to want to hear Oriental style music, which I have no idea what the hell Oriental style music is. You know what I mean? So I mean, but then I try to look at it in the sense of, I'll see it as an opportunity. Like, I'm getting booked for this, period. That's it. It's an opportunity. So I should just be grateful that I'm even getting booked for it. But then again, when I come home, it's like, I really feel like I just got booked for that because I'm Asian and they needed an Asian face on stage. Because, it makes them look like, we're inclusive and we're, you know what I mean? So, and it still happens. It still exists. It still exists. It's not like it's something that's, like we haven't gotten rid of it. And like I said, like what I mentioned earlier, I feel like it was always easier for me to be neutral and just not speak up about it because I didn't want to embarrass myself. Because like I said, like the person next to me probably can't relate, or the person next to me will be like, oh my God, she's like throwing a fit type shit. But I like how now I'm more comfortable speaking up about shit like that, because now I do talk about it, and I'll express my feelings or how I feel about it, opinions or anything like that. And the person next to me will feel the same way and have my back. And like, I like that. I like where things are going now, where, we have each other's backs and we can speak up about stuff like that. And people who have been suppressed about it are comfortable talking out about it, which includes myself, because I used to never be comfortable talking about it, you know?
So as an entrepreneur, I mean, I've gotten it the entire time I'm an entrepreneur. One, I belong to the entrepreneurs organization, and when I go to events with my husband, they automatically assume that he's the entrepreneur. I'll sit at events and they'll be like, "Where's the bathroom?" And I'm just like, "I know. Can you tell me where the bathroom is? I don't know." Like I'm sitting in the front row. They think I'm like the admin assistant. But, that could also just be, like a woman gender roles. But I do believe that, it's important to have people that have your back. When I'm with other entrepreneur men who know and understand what my values are. I remember there was this other, white guy. I think he was super, super drunk. And so he came from behind and he was like, trying to hug me or something like that, and a whole bunch of my other white entrepreneur friends were just like, leave her alone. I also was just like, step back. I'm just like, do you know what this looks like? Like, I know that we're in the same tribe and everything, but like, yo, I'm married, like also knowing like who you are, I think is really, really important. And I could have defended themselves, but they sort of like was just like, get off her, which I think was really, really nice. But I think understanding what you stand for and what aligns with your values, you can put yourself in the situations that make sense for you. You can decide. I think that once you decide what your values are, you only have to decide things once. You don't have to show up and say like, should I belong to this racist group? Like just don't show up anymore. And I also believe that it's really important to focus on the goal, and everything else is noise. So if you do have goals that you want to achieve, because I think that in order for things to change, people that look like us need to show up in power. And if you don't, take the steps to grab that power, or just show up with excellence so that the power is given to you, it's not going to change, because we need to see more of us in media showing up in a big way.
Yeah, I really resonate with, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, I agree. Yes, go.
I really resonate with what Kalika was saying about knowing yourself. I attended one of those holla back bystander training things recently, and I like how they give you a bunch of options and whatever you're comfortable with. And I think I'm very I shy away from confrontation, so I'm more the type that doesn't want to engage with the person who's making the racist remark or whatever. And I think it's helpful to kind of talk to each other about it and develop your own collection of phrases that you can throw out when you see, or when you hear something. Like in the workplace, when somebody makes a snide remark or a racist comment, you can be like, oh, what do you mean by that? And it doesn't come off as super aggressive, but I think it, in my way, it kind of flags it a little bit. It's like, that's a little bit and I feel like that's, I don't take things, these racist, like people at work will be like ni hao, and it doesn't offend me when they do that, but I found that that's like the gateway joke into, like, I've had people at work start doing the ni hao thing, and then their jokes just get progressively more and more inappropriate, to the point where they were like making fun of like Holocaust survivors, and I was like, whoa, how did we get here? You thought I was okay with the ni hao, and it just, and so I think we have to kind of in our own way be able to put up a yellow light and be like, I don't think that was quite okay, so it doesn't progress into something where we're like, how did we find ourselves in this situation?
Well, it makes me think of how, we've talked a lot about the support, right? We need our circle. We need people who we can talk to about this. And you know, who has your back. And I hear such an opportunity as not someone who's Asian American, clearly, that how can I make sure that if I hear something said to somebody else or in my space, like I have to talk about it because it's not directed at me. So how can I say, like, hold on, like I heard that, that's not okay. Or if you know someone who said something, to check them, right? Like, it's, even in this world where there's so many opportunities to get educated and informed, there's so much uneducation and ignorance and obliviousness. And, you know, it's amazing to me. Like, I think all of us experience something we're like, oh, that is not okay. And I didn't know it was okay until right now. And now we have to stop it ever again. Doesn't matter what it is, right? There's so many things in that spectrum. So in that space, what can non-Asian Americans do to support you guys? What can we do? How can we be more? Because I told NoNo when I saw her illustration that I was ready to time machine back with her and beat a guy up who was so rude to her. So like, time machine is not an option. How can we all support you and the Asian American community?
Okay, I'll be quick. Like I've told all my friends, because my friends ask me the same thing, you know, and that's them being proactive with what's going on. They ask me like, how can we help you? I think it starts with your own circle. Individually, starts with your own circle, and it could be little things. It could be anything and everything from reposting something, but don't get repost happy. You know, I feel like some people are just like repost happy, and it's like, no, I want you to read what you're reposting, educate yourselves on what you're reposting. And I think that's why, like I said, I really, and I've put such an emphasis on just, you know, being active on social media about things like this, because it's that easy to educate somebody. All you have to do is post something. And there are people who just, you know, tap through and won't pay attention, but there's also people that do. So anybody that you can reach, if it's 2 people, if it's 10 people, if it's hundreds or thousands of people, it matters. So educating somebody in little ways like that, you know, it matters. It makes a big difference. Like I said, like I don't get too repost happy, because I feel like too much of it is just, if someone is consuming too much of it, they tend to not pay attention. And you know, starting with your friends, I tell my friends, hey, if you see something, just be aware, just be attentive, be cautious, all of that. But yeah, it starts with educating yourselves, and it's really it's just paying attention. You know, if you see it, you know what's going on, and some people are just ignorant and insensitive. So if you see something, if you see someone being ignorant and insensitive, I would check them, but I wouldn't be obnoxious about it. I would just be like, you know, hey, because some people are not aware of that. Some people probably just need to be like sat down, and you just need to talk to them in a casual manner. You don't need to be obnoxious about it. You know what I mean? Like, I have friends who have said things that are out of line, but I know that, you know, they might not mean any harm. They're just ignorant to that. And I can't be mad at those people, because if they've never experienced it, they don't know any better. So my way of educating them is letting them know, hey, this is insensitive and this is why, because I went through this, my family went through this. And you know, that's a small way that I feel like I can educate somebody, just letting these people know, like, I went through this, my family went through this, and that's it. Yeah, I'm not mad at you. You're just, I understand that you're not aware, so I'm going to educate you in that way by sharing stories. And even something like this, we're sharing stories with each other and personal experiences. So that's my approach.
No, I think that's great. Thank you. I first want to take a moment just to thank all of you for being here. I'm so thankful that you are a guest to Powerful Ladies and this panel, and sharing your experience and your stories and your perspectives. We started this conversation series because we want to have the conversations that we know we should and nobody else is. So I'm really thankful for you guys being a yes to having the hard conversation and making them less hard as we have more of them. I would like to give you guys each a few minutes to tell everybody what you're up to and how to find you and support you. You all have a lot going on. And my perspective is that part of changing the conversation is celebrating all the awesome things that are happening in these different communities. So, I'll start with you again, NoNo. What are you up to? How people support you? And we'll go around for the panelists.
I'm like in the midst of all these cool people. I don't know why I'm here. I just doodle on Instagram. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's not always about race. It's mostly about how I'm so awkward in the world. I just want to echo what Bella just said about kind of educating each other. I think I was listening to some of the other racism conversations that you were having, Kara, and those are like crescendo in every other sentence. I was like, amen, preach on, sister. I think we're just a little more quiet. And it's really helpful when other people can amplify our voices and just kind of advocate. And sometimes that has to do, sometimes you can do that just by the activation energy to call something out is sometimes overwhelming, especially to me. So when somebody does the initial, hey, I saw that didn't seem cool, like, do you want to talk about that, is enough to make me feel like, okay, I'm not crazy or alone in this. So that's what my Instagram, if you need some shoes to be designed, I can do that for you too. But thanks for having me.
Sierra.
Great. Oh, yes. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for holding this. Yeah, I guess also Instagram, you can find me. It's my name, SAERAKTOW. I also agree. Yeah, I think it would be so cool if people, I'm just really loving that people are taking at least some, interest in Asian American history as well. I think that's like a really untapped area that I even have to feel like I have to like dig into the archives to learn about, and not a lot of schools teach certain things about Asian American history. I know PBS had a docuseries that they had made free. I don't know if it's still free on their website, but check that out, starting from like the first Asian American who was from the Philippines all the way to, more recent events. And that would be really cool. And I think another small thing, I do believe in reaching out to your Asian American friends and just checking in on them. I think that like it's an awkward thing where people like don't want to talk about race, and then that actually ends up, making people feel lonely. So in this scenario, I think it's okay to talk about race. And Asian Americans are obviously thinking about this all the time. So you won't like you won't like remind them and be like, oh my God, I can't believe what. So yeah, I think that's I've been really happy when friends reach out because it kind of makes us feel at least a little bit more seen. So please do that.
And
Yeah,
knowing how humble you are, sorry, we can also watch your work on a lot of very cool streaming places. So maybe you want to tell people how they can watch some of your amazing work.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah, I do stand up. So a lot of my stand up comedy is on YouTube. If you just search my name and stand up, I do have a lot of bits on Asian American identity, in varying times at different parts of my life. And I am, let's see, I guess I wrote for Earth to Net on Disney Plus, if anybody wants to watch that. I have a podcast, Stay Positive, that I have kind of halted, but I did do a special episode talking about these issues if anybody wants to listen to that most recent one. And I also did a couple little voices in Raya and the Last Dragon, if anybody wants to watch that fun Disney Asian American, Southeast Asian themed movie.
Yes, and you've also been a Powerful Ladies podcast guest, so everybody can learn more about you on your episode.
Obviously.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Of course, of course. Kalika.
Well, I just want to end by saying that anytime we have an unconscious belief system, it always sets us up for failure. So just being able to examine what we really believe is true and being able to challenge that, I think that the 21st century skill is to unlearn and relearn. And when you do that and come to any type of issue, solving for X, with an open mind, with a beginner's mind, I think is where we can move our culture to one of not outrage, but of compassion. Then my whole goal is to help 1 million female founders make at least $1 million in revenue and create 1 million jobs. So if anyone has a business idea, sign up for my newsletter. My creative agency, Orange and Bergamot, is just for female founders. My other agency, Citrus Studios, is for everyone. But yeah, I'm excited to be here. And thank you, Kara, for bringing us all together. I think that this was a really exciting conversation. And I'm so glad to meet all of you wonderful, wonderful panelists. Thank you so much.
3 cheers for everyone making $1 million. I like that game, right? Everybody should be playing that
Well,
one.
a minimum.
Yeah, exactly. We're not stopping there. Last but not least, Bella, what are you up to? How can we support you? Where can we see you?
You guys can find me on social media. Everything is at DJ Bella Fiasco. And I stream on Twitch on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. That's twitch.tv/DJ Bella Fiasco. I don't know. I feel like I'm just doing my part by playing music for people who are stuck at home like myself. But I know we're, slowly getting out there, and but I'm still streaming on Twitch. Music is therapy. So if that fits your vibe, come hang out with us. We listen to music together, and I play music for people. So yeah, at DJ Bella Fiasco. Thank you guys for having me again, Kara. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Honestly, it is such an honor to have all of you here and have everyone that came in as a guest and to listen. Feel free, please reach out, follow everyone, ask your questions as you need to in DMs. We do more of these conversations. We'll be continuing them. We're about to just start planning our 1-year anniversary from our Black Lives Matter conversation that kind of kicked these all off. And we do want to cover other topics between body image. There's so much, right? There's so many things that powerful women should be talking about together to move things forward. Part of why we have Powerful Ladies is because we know what an influence we all have in our communities, in our families, and everywhere. So together, I know that all of us Powerful Ladies can move some big mountains. So we're going to keep pushing for that. Anyone who wants to make sure you know about that, get on our newsletter, follow Powerful Ladies on Instagram. If you have any other questions, you can always reach me, Kara@thepowerfulladies.com. And yeah, I can't wait to have this next conversation. Thank you guys so much and have an amazing weekend.
Thank you. You too. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
I'll follow you all
Thank
on
you.
Insta. Bye.